Well, hello, Stacey Murphy here from Dreaming Earth, and today I have with me a very special guest, Hakim Isler from the Psy Games International. And the Psy Games International is doing something amazing, creating community around psychic abilities.
Mm.
Welcome, Hakim. Thanks so much for being here.
Hey, thank you, Stacy. I appreciate you having me.
Absolutely. And this event is all about imagination and people creating things they've never created before. And Psy Games International came out of left field and for a lot of people and is blazing. People, it's on fire. People are talking about it. What was the inspiration behind Psy Games International and how did this come into being?
That's a great question. So, Side Games it was birthed as a download and that continued to show itself over time. And so, probably, because I was so stubborn and I was just like, I got other things going on, it sounds like a great idea, but nobody's ever done it. It's a fantasy. Probably something I could bring into fruition, but I have other things happening and I don't really know where the place is for this. And through a series of events, synchronicities, it kept showing up, kept showing up. And it wasn't that it showed up directly, but Psy Games was the answer to the questions or the challenges that were happening as I was meeting people and having conversations. It would always be a whisper in the back of my mind that, oh yeah, that's why that's the Psy Games. The Psy Games can solve that issue, solve that problem. And finally, I had been listening to a podcast with George Knapp and Jeremy Corbell, and they were talking to this gentleman from the Defense Intelligence Agency who wrote a book called Skinwalkers at the Pentagon. And in that book, or when they were talking to that gentleman, they said, "Hey, man, you're talking about interdimensional beings and spaceships that move or objects that can pop in and out of existence, like isn't this really scary?" And the guy was like, you know all I can say is that if human beings, from what we know and what we've done research on, if human beings can max out their full potential, we wouldn't have anything to be afraid of. And immediately upon him finishing that statement, I was like, that's why we need the side games. And from that point on, I was just like, okay, this is it, let's go. And I started to the process, and I called up a guy named Jeffrey Mishlove, and I said, look, here's what I'm thinking about doing. And I was secretly deep down kind of looking for an out, right? Looking for him to be like, oh, I've been in the field for 50 years and, something like that. Just, I don't think it would work. And then I'd be like, okay, well, cool. He said it. So I tried. And he was like, 50 years ago, we tried something like this and it didn't work. It wasn't the time. He was like, but I think now's the time with everything I see going on. And, yeah, I would support you in that. And I was like, oh my gosh, okay. So this means that I really have to go now. I have to do this thing. And that's how it started.
That's phenomenal. And I think people can relate to that, these ideas that they have and they think it might be impossible. They're not really sure how.
Yeah.
And isn't it wonderful that even though you think you have to go out there and make it happen, isn't it fun that the nudges showed up, the right timing, the right people along the way? So I love that so much. Tell people a little bit about the first Sci Games International that happened this year, some of the highlights of it, some of the things that went beyond your wildest imagination of what you thought might be possible.
Yeah. So before I do that, as I lead into that, I'll actually define what the side games is.
Mhm.
So the side games is a world stage where we're setting the tone, or we're setting the idea of what we call information, inspiration, and education. And so we want to be able to give people information about psi abilities from leaders in the field. Then we want to inspire people by showing them what you can do with these abilities, in a tournament style fashion. So we have people who play games and they're on their different teams and then they kind of compete in this fun way. And then we have the education, which is the workshop aspect at the end. And so if you now have been informed about remote viewing, you now have seen remote viewing and people having playing these fun games, you can now be educated about it. And why that was important is because as I traveled the world, and you've been in a lot of seminars too, there's a lot of people talking about what they're doing and how they're educating at their specific spots, or just talking about theories about what could be going on, which are all important because that helps engage people's minds and their hearts. And it, in some ways, it can create collaboration. But it was very important for me to not just bring people from one specific realm together, but bring people from different genres together to talk about really intense and really some difficult problems and some really lighthearted problems, and in us to be able to work together in a collaborative format to kind of solve those. In addition, I wanted to be able to say, okay, instead of us saying like, oh, I have this feeling, or I have intuition, or I have precognition, I wanted to us to understand like what that means to do that on a high level by really showing people what benchmarks are, where the benchmarks are for those particular genres of psychic abilities, and then us be able to push the boundaries of what those are collectively as a species. And so, really, what is the 4 minute mile of precognition? What is the 4 minute mile of remote viewing? And, start to push that boundary. And then lastly, it was like, well, there's also this gap where you have youth and adults. You have events for kids out there where people are now just starting to train kids on a grand scale in different psi abilities, but um, they're all doing their things in their separate communities and so on and so forth. So bringing all those folks together, as well as the children together, and then you have the scientists and the researchers and the speakers doing their thing in adult settings, but bringing it all under one roof. And so this way, as kids grow in these abilities, they have good mentorship from the elders that have come before them and that have been researching this for like 50 years. And that's very important. And that's very tribe centric, I think, in the idea of like how tribes used to work in the past, is that they had the elders there to impart that wisdom on the new generation that was coming up. And, I really value that. And I want the side games to stand for that. And that's what we did this year. So we had this event. We brought people together from all over the world. There were people there from Thailand, from the Philippines, from Brazil, from Australia, from Mexico, all over the place. Ecuador, they all came to the US, and we had this event and people were sharing these abilities, sharing knowledge, and then showcasing what could be done. Along with children there, we had like 40 children there this year for the first time. And it was mind blowing. It was wonderful.
That's incredible. And what was something for you that you imagined this whole thing?
Mhm.
You sat and you said this would be really fun, this would be really engaging, this would be inspiring for people, this would really help people. And then everybody shows up. And what was something about the event that was maybe even more magical than you could have predicted?
So there's always this, that's a great question. What was magical more than what I could predict was I knew in my heart what I wanted it to be, but then to see it come to fruition and it take its own form, and start to actually manifest in real life in real time. Um, it's one thing if people connect to me directly and they say, "Oh, okay, I see what you mean by the side games. I see why that is. I can feel your passion." But I thought there was going to be 300 people. It was like 600 people. And then, so I didn't get a chance to touch base with everyone that came there. But through the survey and through feedback that we got, everyone had felt the experience and had felt the energy that I wanted to create for the side games, this community, this collaboration, this acceptance, this welcoming energy. Everyone came out of there really feeling that. It was very touching for a lot of people. We had a lot of people reach out to us and say what a magnificent event it was, how much they cried, how inspired they were. And those were all the things that in my heart, I was like, this is what this event has to be. And then to have so many people coming to me unsolicited and saying, this is what I felt, this is what happened. That was really powerful. Probably the most powerful moment is that I have a yoga, I train with a yoga master, and he was there, and I had asked him to be there to talk on the ethics panel for psi abilities. and to do some other stuff. And he has always been cautioning me because the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali talks about how you have to be careful about engaging these powers and making it all about the powers, you know? And I was like, well, the side games isn't all about the powers. It's really more about the community. The powers, the abilities are happening, they are taking shape. And so giving people information and showing them an ethical way, because not everybody's into yoga, not everybody's into this thing or that thing. Everybody's out there doing their own thing, but they're still engaging with these abilities. So what's a way we can all come together and really talk about this stuff in a way that shows light, love, and compassion, as well as ethics. And so at the or on the last day, he was getting ready to leave, and we were talking, and he was like, "I see what you did here. This is really amazing, you know. But I'm still want to make sure, Hakeem, that you really, how do you really feel about this? What are you trying to accomplish here?" And I said, "Well, I want it to be about collaboration. I want it to be about community. I want it to people to feel what it's like to be accepted and be inclusive." And as soon, almost exactly when I finished my last word, this lady walks up to me, him, and our friend, and she's like crying, and she's like, "Hey, I'm about to leave. I just wanted to say you don't know me, but this event was amazing. I felt like there was so much collaboration and there was so much inclusivity. Everything I just said, she almost verbatim says." And you know, he's got this very like thing he does where he holds his arm and he holds his face, and he's sitting there and he's looking at her, and she walk and he smiles and she walks away, and he looks at me and he says, "Well, I guess the universe is saying that this is exactly what you need to be doing." And I was like, because you know, it was so perfect. He saw it, my friend saw it, I saw it. Like, I'm saying this is what I feel is the side games is about. It's not about just these powers or getting wrapped in ego around these powers. And immediately, this woman walks up who's not a part of the conversation and says the exact same things, almost like the universe was saying, "Yes, Gary, he is on the right path. You know, he's doing the right thing." And here's the validator to confirm for you and ease your concerns as his teacher, you know? And I was just like, it was mind blowing for all of us. We were just standing there in shock, like, okay. So, well, he wasn't. He was like, "Oh, okay, yep, there's the universe. Okay, let's go." So,
Yeah, and I think what you were just sharing is so potent because the first time somebody sees telepathy in action or they know that they have some ability, let's say even people listening to this have probably seen things, heard things, known things that they shouldn't have known otherwise, but somehow have the intelligence and they're like, whoa, what does that mean? Or whoa, what do I do with that? And so I think people have been having these abilities, but they're not really sure how to harness them, but also what's the collective potential of that? Because the minute that you are connected to somebody in that level, you're also connected to their heart in a lot of ways. And I've witnessed you at Contact in the Desert doing some demonstrations and watching people cry, you know,
mhm.
what is possible now that we are able to communicate with maybe people or things that we haven't been able to communicate with before. So I'd love to talk more about that, about the ethics and about the collective. What do you imagine is possible as we move into an era where psi abilities are more accepted and more inclusive? And what does that mean for how we operate in the world and in business and with each other?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. And so, Um, well, first, what does it mean to be more intuitive? What does it mean to have these abilities? And I had a conversation with a friend of mine, and I was telling him, he was like, you know, not really into all of this. And so he was like, "I don't get it. You know, you're teaching people this stuff. I mean, how's that going to improve their life?" And just to sum it up, I was just like, "Well, if I took your eyes and your smell and your hearing and your taste away, how would you feel about that?" He was like, "Well, I'd be like not able to really experience my environment." I said, "Well, if I told you like when it comes down to other animals and beings out there, we're only really experiencing the world with about 1 or 2% proficiency. using our basic senses because we're not even able to see all of the light spectrum or smell everything there is to smell or hear most of this, the audible, you know, spectrum. So what would I tell? And he was like, "Oh, okay, yeah." And so I was like, "Okay." So now we have that framework. So we have this idea that we're not actually operating to our maximum potential, and we're not actually seeing the world for what it is. We see just a small sliver of the world. It's like the blind man who's touching the trunk of the elephant and trying to figure out that it's an elephant, right? So we know it's this long thing and it feels really weird, but there's this whole massive picture that we're missing. So then, now that I see the full picture, if we can get to a point where we can start seeing more of the picture, more of what's happening in the world around us, and that also means that we're able to see more of each individual because we start recognizing we're not separate at all. We are a collective. And so when I'm feeling certain things, that person may be radiating certain things, or if I'm radiating certain things, that person may be feeling certain things. So when we start recognizing that, then now we become just as responsible for those around us and how we change or influence the environment as the environment and that we're in can influence and change us. And so we see that there's a level of responsibility there. So if I see someone and I know that they have a really low self-esteem and I see that their hair is not the most nicest today, and then I say to them like, your hair sucks, like that's not a very responsible thing to say when I know that they have a low self-esteem. Um, Now, if we have that type of relationship and they're like, oh, Hakim's always clowning around, or I always expect Hakim to tell me exactly the truth. That's what I expect for him, even if it hurts. Then if we have that dynamic in our relationship, then I'm responsible for telling them that because that's how our relationship is. But if we have this other relationship where I know this person is very insecure, then I may not say anything unless they ask me. And even then, there's a way to present it in which is going to be correct and a way to present it which is going to be incorrect. So if I have these now taking that framework and placing it on these abilities, if I have the ability to see in a different time and place at any time, if I am interested in a woman and courting a woman, it doesn't mean that I should just go and like start, looking in on her while she's sleeping or, getting dressed in the morning. Like that's not ethical, and we have to. But if you grow up with this ability, you may not have had anyone to tell you that that's not ethical. You may have to figure that out on your own, probably have done it quite a lot by the time you figure out you get into a framework as an adult that they're like, you realize like, oh yeah, that's not right. I can't just look on people like that. And that's why I even say, this is kind of off topic, but on topic. I had this conversation with one of my teachers, and we were talking about teaching remote viewing to children. And they were like, well, children could have this, what we call emotional impact. Like you can end up at a place and that place has all these negative energies and vibes, and then they don't know how to handle that. And I said, well, okay, but what if they're doing that anyway? So your answer is to not teach them that or how to handle that because you're saying that that could happen. But if they are already tapped in and that's happening anyway, and then they go and try to talk to an adult about it, and an adult is saying that's imagination, that's evil, that's this, that's that, and shuts them down, now they're left to be alone dealing with that type of energy. So we really have to start having this discussion about how do we have mentorship? How do we have good understanding of what ethics are, when I should not be doing this, when it's okay to do this? If I can feel that you are hurting inside, and maybe I don't just walk up to you and be like, you're hurting, I'm going to tell you what to do, but maybe I'm just there for you, right? And so that's a very ethical way. I can feel it. I know it's happening, but I'm not going to force you to admit to it. I just be there for you, right? And so there's ways that we can start, and we will have to start having these discussions as we move forward. Just like people are having in the realm of AI, as AI becomes more, I just got done with college and they were really, really strict about we don't want to see any papers with any AI in it, no chat GPT, none of that stuff. But They were having like, I think 50%, 60% of the class was turning in stuff with ChatGPT. So, you know, I think there's probably going to be some leeway there that they're going to have to like incorporate that now. You know, the old guard is recognizing that we can't stop these things from happening. It's either that or kick everybody out of school except for 50%. And that's your 50% of your student body means that you're going to be missing out on a lot of revenue and you probably can't be a school anymore. So there's got to be a discussion about how do we ethically allow this stuff in and make sure that we give guidelines because people are going to use it. And then the same thing with these abilities, I think, is that as we start to develop more and more and we start to see and accept these things, we need to have a talk about what are the ethics that go into that. How do we accept people? How do we not use these things to hurt people, like the doctor's code of do no harm? How do we have that? Or even the yogic yama, which is, I'm drawing a blank now. It's kind of like thou shall not harm or not you shouldn't hurt anything or anyone, right? And so that's kind of the idea, that first limb of yoga. So you see that pop up in different aspects, and so that would be what I think is important.
Yeah, and it's so important. I think one of the things I remember most as a kid, I was in eighth grade, and I actually had a voice that said to me, "If the garage is ever on fire, here's how you get out of the house." And my bedroom was right above the house or right above the garage. And 2 weeks later, when the garage was on fire and I had to get out of the house, I knew, but also I thought in some ways, I was like, did I start that fire? That was
Mm,
almost 50 years ago, or 40 years ago. And so I wrote a paper about it and turned it into my teacher thinking this, now somebody's going to talk to me about this. Somebody's going to help me with this. Somebody's going to help me understand. Nope. I just got the paper back with a grade on it and a couple edits and no talk about what does all this mean, right? So I
mm.
love that it is happening to our kids and getting stifled or just ignored, right? And so this is the opportunity. I love that. Um, I think what would be great is we're gonna segue here in a minute into doing some practices with the audience. And I think what would be great is to share a couple of the different techniques, the psi abilities that you
Hmm.
play with at the games so that they get an understanding because we kind of skipped that a little bit. So a couple of the different psi abilities that you work with in particular.
Yeah, so at the games we decided this year, and then we're going to do again next year. That five different disciplines would be good to go with, and they're remote viewing, MindSight, right? I guess the computer, the AI loves this idea. Um, MindSight, precognition, dowsing, pendulum, and deviceless, meaning using your hands. And then I said precognition, pendulum dowsing, and PK, which is telekinesis or psychokinesis. And so those were some of the ideas that we wanted to stick with because anyone who's been in those fields for a long period of time, when you have a discussion with them, a lot of the ways you would engage those different abilities, they overlap, right? So, for instance, if I can do remote viewing, which is non-local perception, then the chances are that I can do mind sight, which is local perception. So, mind sight is putting a blindfold on and being able to see your environment or perceive things in your environment immediately. Remote viewing, you don't have a mask on, but you're perceiving things at a distance that are not in your environment. So they're like two sides of the same coin. Then when you add dowsing into that, dowsing is that you're looking for something in your environment, your immediate local environment that you can't see, but it's not like you're obstructing your eyes, you just can't see it, right? So it's either in a box or it's hidden under something, or in this case, dowsing originally or quite well is known for finding water or gold from, the old timers. And so I know I'm looking for water or gold, but it's underneath the ground somewhere. I can't see it, but it's local to me because I'm here. I'm here on the land trying to figure out where it is, but I can't see it. So if you can imagine that all of those are kind of the same they would use a similar mechanism. Just one, I'm trying to see something far away with my consciousness. The other one, I'm trying to see something here, but my eyes are obstructed. So I'm looking, trying to perceive it with my consciousness. And the other one, my eyes aren't obstructed, but wherever it is hitting like underground, and I'm trying to perceive it with my consciousness. And so my goal was that by choosing things like that, that people would be able to we'd be able to find a greater number of people who could do it, because if you're doing one, you probably can do some of the others. And since something like this hasn't been done before, we didn't want to choose modalities that were completely different on different sides of the spectrum. They all engage consciousness in some way, but some engage it a lot different. And so we wanted to be able to have a big pool of people to choose from. So if I can find a pool of remote viewers, chances are they can do many of the other modalities or disciplines.
Super cool. I think it's a good time to transition and share with people one of the modalities. Uh,
Hmm.
and so, what have you got for us today to practice with? This is for our audience to see a little bit into their psychic abilities and see what they might know about themselves already. Do you want to set it up?
Yeah, so we have our first game today we're going to do is a telepathy game. And so this was made famous by a guy named Zener. I mean, not Zener, by a guy named JB Rhine. And JB Rhine used this thing called the Zener cards. And he was trying to understand telepathy. He was at Duke University. He was a psychologist and actually is the guy who's responsible for really making PSI as for psychic abilities really popular. He was doing he wanted to do research on this, and he was a psychologist at Duke University, and he realized that if he started writing papers and he used PSY, then people would be like, oh, it's psychology. So he couldn't do that. So he chose to do PSI because he found out the Greek symbol for psi, and then that means that denotes psychic abilities. So now we have these Zener cards, and the Zener cards basically are a group of cards with a symbol on them, like so. You have a star, or you might have a circle, or you may have a plus sign, or you might have a wavy line, right? Or you might have a square, right? And so the idea is that this mind to mind communication, even across distance, because really distance doesn't exist when it comes down to on the quantum and when it comes down to consciousness. We can cross vast amount of distances, and what we would perceive in the real world, or the physical world, I should say, um, as distance and time doesn't really exist on the same degree as what in the consciousness or realm. And so we want to really dive into that. So I am going to be thinking about one of these cards. I'm going to pick one. I'm going to be thinking about it, looking at it, and then you are trying to receive what it is that I'm thinking, right? And that's the ultimate goal for the game, right? And so, and then we'll give it a few seconds or a minute, and then we'll unveil the card, show you the card, and then you can know which one I was and if you had it right or whatever. And what I'll ask you to do is that out of those five choices, again, here are the choices. We have a
Mhm.
square, wavy line, plus sign, circle, and star. And so, pretty simple game. I'm just going to choose one of these cards at random. And then I just want you guys to go into your zone and try to feel what it is that I'm putting out into the world. And again, even though that you might be doing this at a different time, it doesn't matter because time doesn't exist in the consciousness realm. And so it's only something that we do in the physical realm. But in this energetic realm, it's not there. So with that being said, I'm going to choose my first card and I'm going to stare at it. All right. And so now I'm just going to ask you how you did. And on the count of three, I'm going to show you the card. One, two, three.
Ah.
It's a star.
Woohoo! It's funny when you were picking the cards, when you were saying
Uh-huh.
pick one, and my first thought was he's gonna pick a star. Like, and I don't know, I'm like, did I just send that to him or did he send that to me? What's happening? But then it was interesting because it switched for me. And when I felt into what you were sending, I got a circle. So it's so interesting how it your mind is who
Yeah.
right?
So that's the idea of playing these games is that we don't get wrapped up in the outcome, but what's really interesting is what we start to learn the language of choosing the right answer. We learn what happens when that process that you just went through, that might be unique to you. And so you start learning, oh, okay, this is whenever it comes up and I have this one feeling where it's a star, but then I choose square. Why did I do that? What was that? And the more you play that, you'll keep coming up to that same question, and eventually you'll come with an answer, and you'll be like, "Oh, okay. So now, whenever star or whenever that first initial instinct is what I'm going to go with." Some people it's the second. Some people the first instinct is always not the one, but it's the second one that they're like, "No, I think it's this." That's the one. And so people are learning their internal language and by playing these games as they go through the battle of their logic brain wanting to be in control and their creative brain, their right brain being able to let go. All right. So now I'm going to do this again, choosing a card and boom. And I'm going to tell you what card it is on the count of three, three, two, one, boom, wavy lines.
That one I got.
All right. There it is.
Yeah.
Ding, 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 ding,
Um,
ding.
this one I got differently. I tried something different this time. This time I tried instead of just letting it pop in, like sometimes I inhale and then I exhale, and whatever I see when I exhale, that's the one.
Mm-hmm.
This time, what I tried was testing. Since there's only five choices, I was like, is it a circle? Is it a star? Is it a square? And when I got to is it wavy lines, I got a yes. It wouldn't work if I was remote viewing and there was many different options, but because there was five options, I could find the one. So that was interesting.
Yeah, yeah, that's super awesome.
Yeah. This is fun.
So
This is
we
really fun.
we got one more. We got
Okay.
one more.
Okay.
Okay. And go. And on the count of three, I'm gonna unveil the card. One, two, three. Boom. Plus sign.
Nope.
Oh, okay, okay, but that's all
Saw
right.
that I was square. I
Square.
saw like an edge, like a hard edge. So, and I picked square. Yeah.
Well, there's some hard edges, maybe on the inside there.
Yeah,
All
yeah,
right.
yeah.
So, all right. So
All right.
those are our three that we did. So, you could get Xener cards online and just play with them. And one of the things that I found, which is really interesting, especially like with psychokinesis games, is that um, it's really tough for people to focus. Um, they want to get good at these games, but then when you start to play them, a person will try it like once or twice, and then they don't want to do it anymore, or they just kind of go off and do something else. And a lot of these, I think, are good games because They help us with our focus, our attentiveness. And I think that's one of the main aspects to our power is that we have to be able to maintain our intention and then keep our attention, right? So we have to figure out what our intentions are, set them, maintain that, and then pay attention to the fact that we're maintaining that intention. And those two are, I think, a secret recipe of magic, you know. And when I say magic, I mean our abilities. That could be a different term for different people. So
So, Hakeem, you got one more game for us. What is it?
yeah, so a lot of people love remote viewing, and remote viewing has been used for a while, for a long time now, to find out information on remote locations and see things that you would otherwise not have access to. So crossing time and space with your consciousness. And so we have a little box here. We're going to do a simple remote viewing. And in this box, there's an object, right? And you know, you just the biggest thing with remote viewing is to try to move your conscious mind out of the way. So the goal is not to name, but to describe. So we don't want to like come up with like the name of something because that's what we have when we do that. We have all types of stuff tied to that, and that could lead us down the wrong path. So I might see, like, for instance, I might see something that's circular and, you know, it reminds me of it's like ceramic and, you know, and then all of a sudden I say plate. And then it's like, now I'm like thinking about plate and dishes and all this stuff. And really what it was a ceramic doll that you know, like a ceramic ghost doll that had like a curve to it. It was a circle or something like that, or a Pac-Man, you know, person. And so, you know, because you automatically named it a plate, now all of a sudden you're going down a different path. When if you just kept giving the descriptors, oh, look, it's yellow. Oh, now it's got black stuff on it. Oh, black circles on it. Okay, now a black half of a pie. Oh, you know, shiny. Oh, okay. Movement and sharp angles. Okay, got it. You know, and now you just keep going down that path, and eventually, you know, you get more and more information, and then your monitor stops you, and then you might be like, "Look, here's the photo. It's a picture of Pac-Man person. You know, a Pac-Man ceramic plate or a Pac-Man ceramic, you know, circle." And you're like, ah, I got it. Okay, that's why I was getting yellow and I was getting the circles for the eyes and you know, and so try that and that would be the best bet. So that's my little bit of coaching is try not to name the thing. Just try to just give as many descriptors as possible. And then when you see the thing, you might see that your descriptors really were describing that object. And so don't try to guess because it's a small box. Oh, it's got to be this thing. It's got to be, you know, something super small or whatever. Just let your subconscious mind feed you the information, flow through your body onto the paper. So you'll need a sheet of paper, you'll need a pen or a pencil, and I'm going to give you a number. We have what we call a tasking number, and that's just an arbitrary number, doesn't have any real meaning that my conscious mind and or subconscious mind can attach to this item in psychic space so that you when you hear it it's almost like a telephone number can dial up that object in psychic space and then be able to get a picture of what it is and you can start describing it on your page. So whatever flows through you and comes to you, just keep describing, you know, colors, shapes, feelings, smells, whatever descriptors come, whatever adjectives come to you, just keep on coming at it, right? Until we say stop. And we'll give you about 3 minutes to do that. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to tell you the number and I want you to write it down on your page as I say it to you. And then when I get that last number, it's 7 digits, then you can just start putting your descriptors down, whatever comes to you. All right. So here's the 7 numbers. 2, 6, 4, 1, 8, 9, 2. 2, 6, 4, 1, 8, 9, 2. Go. And about 30 seconds more.
Mm.
And stop. Good. So, what are some of your descriptors?
It doesn't make any sense. This is fun.
It's not supposed to.
I know. We'll see if any of this is even close, but I got blue swirl first.
Okay.
I got softness and light. I got transparent, and then I got sticky. I got reflective, and I got cold. And I don't know if
Okay.
something could actually be any all of those, but maybe one of them I got close.
Okay. Is that everything?
That's what I got. Yeah.
No other colors, no other shapes, none of that stuff.
No, it's very just they're very broad descriptors. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Well, let's go ahead and unveil our object. And the object is
Oh, it's totally off.
oh, a
Yeah.
little fire truck.
Oh my gosh. Totally off. That's so funny. That's really fun. I
Yeah.
love it.
Yeah, so a little fire truck. So some cool descriptors would have been, white, obviously red, black, blocky, square, metal. You could have come up with siren sounds.
Yeah.
You could have come up with gurgling sounds, rumbling sounds, splashing sounds for the water maybe shooting on something. Um,
That's
you
the
know,
only thing I would link to what I saw.
yeah, the splashing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the blue, I saw blue swirls was the first thing I saw.
Okay. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so those would be some ways to describe. And it's a tough go. And a lot of people think, remote viewing because it says viewing like I'm seeing something.
Mhm.
And really it's perceiving. And so there was a debate at one point that it should be called remote perception and not remote viewing, because you're perceiving and you're not seeing. And when people see, and that could be a thing too, then we consider them clairvoyant, where they're like clearly seeing something, like, oh, I see a fire truck. Okay, cool. Well, and if you do that enough times, then the whole describing thing is not for you as much as, because you're just clairvoyant and you can see whatever you see. But majority of people just get perceptions of things. They get feelings about stuff. Oh, I feel hot, or man, I feel wet, or I feel like, uh, like a cold, like metallic thing, or, something warm, and so, and as you start to develop that, that could be like the warmth of the engine or the sun reflecting off the metal or something of that nature. So, yeah, so there's no wrong answer. It's all part of just again learning that language of how your subconscious mind will communicate to you on and to your body and through your body, and just really deciphering that and going with that, and then growing from there. So
This has been amazing. And what I'm curious about is what are you imagining next for the Psy Games, for you? What's alive in your imagination these days?
yeah, that's a beautiful question. So the side games has three aspects to it, three legs, and the event is just one of them. So there's side games, the event, which we do annually, and the goal is that we would get that around the world. So it was well, we got the international, and we'd have branches in Italy and Europe, different aspects of Europe, and then uh, let's say Australia, because we had a person come from there. Southeast Asia, we can have some areas there. All over the world, we can just have different satellite schools or venues where we do this. And then there's the school. I actually own 100 acres of land. I have some structures on that land, but I want to build it up to have one building where we'll house about 25 people at a time, and they can come in and they can learn these skills for a week-long class. But maybe 10 to 15 years from now, when Side Games is off, kind of able to sustain itself as an event, then what I want to do is I want to turn that school into maybe a charter school where we have like kids come year round and they actually partake in classes, and they learn these events. They learn these abilities, but they also learn the math and sciences and stuff, but from a very intuition based place. And so that would be one thing. And then we have Side Games Online. Side Games Online is how we test people who come in and they want to compete and they want to be a part of a team or something, just so that we know that they can do the thing. So we ask them to take these, play these games, and they'll score at a certain level on these games, and then we can invite them in. But it's open to everyone, so anyone can go on there and play the games on their spare time and just get better and have fun. Or you can use it as a means to, get to the as high a level as you can, to maybe we can invite you to the side games, as an event so that you can come and be in this tournament. So that's kind of what we're looking at.
Wonderful. So if there's anybody who is an investor who might be interested in this vision for the future, then what's the best way for them to get in contact with you?
Oh, that's beautiful. So SciGamesInternational.com is one way to get in contact with me. And the Sci being PSI Games International.com. The other is they can go to either of my websites, Hakim, Hakim dash Isler, Isler.com, or greater dash potentials.com. So those are some ways to get in contact with me, to be able to reach out. And right now, the focus, like I said, is on the event. So we need investors for the event, sponsors for the event. We are building out the website, the platform. So, if there are people who want to invest in that, then we have that as well. And that's where we are.
Amazing. I highly recommend whoever's thinking about it go to the Psy Games this year. Where is it going to be hosted this next year?
This next year in 2026 is going to be in Charlotte, North Carolina. We chose that because the airport's super easy to get to, from all over the world. It's a hub, and we'll be at the Westin Hotel, July 31st through August 2nd, 2026.
Wonderful. See you all there. Thank you. Thank you so much for being here with me.
Cool. Well,
Yeah.
thank you.